Hi guys, it's Emily, and today I'm here to bring you my October wrap-up. I only finished 5 books in October, but I'm also going to mention the book that I finished on November the 1st, just because it's a fiction book, and I'd like all my nonfiction November wrap-ups to be all nonfiction. So let's just get right on into it. The first book that I read in October was Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. I read this for a group read in a Goodreads group that I'm in, and this was pretty good. It's just Norse mythology stories rewritten by Gaiman. You know, he's putting his own spin on them. I only found it to be okay. I'm not particularly interested in myths. I mostly read this because in the Around the Year challenge, there's a prompt about read a book that's based on a myth, and then also I needed to read a book that started with N for my A to Z challenge. So I mostly did it as a challenge book, and I wasn't particularly interested in mythology. As a Christian, I don't believe any of that mythology is real, and also the gods in these stories, they're supposed to be like all powerful, but then they get easily tricked by giants and easily tricked by other species of people that live in their world, and it's just like, how can you be all powerful if you're so easily tricked by these giants and stuff? So it was okay. If you like myths, it might be a good read, but I didn't find it to be anything particularly worth writing home about or anything like that. The next book that I finished in October was Subverting Open Government by Montgomery, and this was one of those books that was on my TBR that I can only get at my academic library, so I picked them up. This is about how presidents have been trying to dismantle the Federal Records Act and the Presidential Records Act. It's starting with Nixon. Of course, Nixon had the Watergate scandal and all of that stuff, and so he was really concerned about trying to keep his papers private, because before Nixon, there was this assumption that presidential papers were private property and that presidents could take them when they left, and Nixon was trying to do that too, and the Congress was like, wait, your papers have more to do with, like, criminal activity. Hold on a second, mister. And so they started making all these laws about how presidents can't take their papers when they leave. And, they have to go into the presidential libraries, and they have to be under the jurisdiction of the National Archives and all that. And it's sort of about how Nixon and then Reagan and then Bush Jr. all tried to dismantle these laws that are meant to provide more public access. And I've mentioned before, but I'm really interested in working in the National Archives one day, and I'm super interested and passionate about public access to government records. So I enjoyed this book. I learned a lot. I don't really recommend it for anybody else, though, because most people would probably find it pretty boring. Just saying. Next book that I finished in October was In the Woods by Tana. This is the first in her Dublin Murder Squad series, and I'm sure you've heard about it. It's been going around in the booktube and in the real world. I really enjoyed this. This is about Detective Rob Ryan, and when he was a kid, two of his best friends and him went missing for a while, and then a few days later, he was found, but his best friends were never found. And so he's got this trauma. And so we learn more about that. And then he's also a detective in the Dublin Murder Squad. And he is solving this murder that might be connected to the disappearance of his friends from, 30 years ago or whatever. And so it's about the murder, but it's also sort of a psychological study. We see his inner workings and how he's having sort of a mental breakdown. I read this for the Around the Year challenge to read a book with an unreliable narrator. Rob tells us from the first page that he's unreliable and that he lies, and so going in that he's not a reliable narrator. I really enjoyed this book. I was slightly disappointed in the ending. I won't spoil it, but I was disappointed. But I would pick up the rest of the book later on down the road. I then finished X Marks the Scot by Victoria Roberts. I read this for my A to Z challenge for the letter X. I picked this up solely for the challenge. This is a historical romance. I don't have much to say about it because I didn't think it was that good. It was fair. I haven't read a romance novel in a long time, and I don't really enjoy them that much anymore. It was cute. It was simultaneously too complex and too simple. The main love story was super simple. Both the characters think the other's hot and they want to, have relations. But the plot around the love story was about like the Guy Fawkes incident and things like that. And this got really convoluted, and I couldn't follow everything. So I don't really recommend this book unless you're looking for a book that starts with the letter X for a challenge, like I was. But yeah, otherwise it was always fair. I then read Everyone Brave is Forgiven by Cleave, and I picked this up based on Becky's recommendation from Becky Ford. She had gone to an author talk with Cleave and heard a lot about his process in writing the book, and her description of it made me really interested in the book. I'll link it down below if you want to check out her review of she hasn't read the book, but her discussion of her meeting with Cleave. This is a historical fiction book set in like World War II era. It's partially set in London, and then it's also set in Malta, and I believe Malta's in Greece. I'm not sure about that. I should know that after reading a whole book about it. Anyway, this is about Mary and Alastair, and Mary is a pretty wealthy girl who lives in London, and when war is declared, she goes to the war office and she thinks she's going to get assigned to some glamorous job, and she gets assigned to be a teacher. But most of the children have been evacuated, so the only kids that are left are like the disabled kids and also the black children of London. And so she has this class, and she teaches them, and she learns to love teaching. And then it's also about the story of Alastair, and he's in Malta, and it's about the siege of Malta and how, the Germans are blocking the blockade, and so they're all starving to death. And it's about their love story and how they meet and how they fall in love. And it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. It was a good book. It taught me more about Malta. I'd never really heard about the Malta siege. I've never really heard about this, teaching the kids that have been left behind, because the evacuation policy, it favored white children, and black children weren't really sent away that much. And even one of the black children Mary teaches is sent away, but he has such a negative experience that his parents decide to bring him back because they think it's better for him to possibly get bombed than to be suffering at the hands of huge racists up in the countryside. So I really enjoyed this, and I would recommend it if you're looking for a historical fiction book that's set in the World War II era, that you're wanting to learn a little bit more about a part of history that you might not know about. And I also read this for the A to Z challenge for the letter E prompt. So hitting all the challenges for the A to Z prompt this month. Yeah. And then on November 1st, I finished the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society by Marianne Shaffer and Annie Barrows. This was a reread for me. I did a buddy read of this with Elizabeth and Chris, and they both have YouTube channels. Chris's is more like antique stuff, I believe, and Elizabeth's, of course, is book related, but I'll link them both down below. This was a really sweet book. Again, I enjoyed rereading it. If you haven't heard about it, it's been pretty popular, but if you haven't heard about it, this is an epistolatory novel set again in London right after World War II, and it's about this journalist, Juliet, and she begins a correspondence with some people in Guernsey, which is an island in the English Channel between England and France. And Guernsey was taken over by the Germans during World War II, and so it's about their experiences, and then it's about Juliet, becoming sort of like family to this community, and eventually she goes to visit them, and it's about how her life changes. And it's a really sweet book, y'all. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. I love it. It's such a great book. It's so sweet, and it's so charming, and, I don't reread books that much. Obviously, this is my first reread of the year, but it was just such a great book, y'all, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for something sweet and something pretty quick. It's got less than 300 pages. It's a real easy read, so I highly recommend it. So that's all I read in October, and that's the one fiction book that I finished in November. Like I said, the rest of my November books are going to be nonfiction, and so my wrap-up should be all nonfiction. I hope everybody's having a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!